The Children's Bureau at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Administration for Children and Families, reports the number of children in foster care decreased for the third consecutive year in 2020 to an estimated 407,000. And the number of children waiting to be adopted also fell in 2020 to an estimated 117,000 across America. Justin and Alexis Black have firsthand experience on just how the foster care system operates. They've gone through the trials and tribulations of the system themselves, and they've dedicated their professional lives to making sure that the foster youth of today have a positive impact for tomorrow, so that they can take the torch to be the leaders of our next generation. Together they've published a best-selling book entitled Redefining Normal: How to Foster Kids Beat the Odds, and discovered healing, happiness, and love. The book has impacted over 5,500 youth to date. They've also created the ROSE program, which stands for Rising Above Societal Expectations Empowerment Group, and Redefining Normal. They hope to continue the conversation surrounding mental health, relationships, and healing. One half of the dynamic duo, Justin, joined me this week to have a conversation about inclusiveness in all aspects of society for today's foster youth, and how we can create an environment which allows the foster youth of today to flourish and thrive. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, buddy. And I'm really excited to learn about all of the important work that you do to support young people. Great to see you this afternoon, and thank you so very much for being here.
Yeah, of course. It's a blessing for me to be here, to be able to talk to you. And yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And I want to dive right into the heart of what you do and why it's so important for you to support young people and foster kids as well. Tell me more. I'm curious.
Yeah, of course. So what we do, our main focus is to try to stop the cycle of trauma. I think trauma becomes normalized and becomes so desensitized to it in different families, communities, and societies that the work we do with the Redefining Normal company and with the Redefining Normal book is to try to provide information, strategies, and techniques on how to prevent generational trauma and instead increase and influence generational success within individuals' lives, and those individuals will be able to dictate that in their romantic relationships, friendships, professional life, and in other settings in their life.
And you do some of this in the book that you wrote entitled Redefining Normal about it. So tell me about the book and what it's all about.
Yeah, so with the Redefining Normal book, the book is called Redefining Normal: How to Foster Kids Beat the Odds and Discover Healing, Happiness, and Love. So it was co-written by me as well as my wife, Alexis Black. We wrote the book back in 2020, and we started to think about how influential individual people are when they come together, when who they are individually, and then when they come together with another person and they influence their family and just the culture that they set. And unfortunately, within our lives, having experience in the foster care system, having experience with trauma, so much is passed down that we become desensitized to trauma and becomes normalized and it becomes cultural. So we talked about our personal experiences with our family, that being cultural, and just that process of it overall. And then kind of displaying how that could be similar for other families and communities, and really having readers learn from our experience of that process of trauma becoming normal, how it influences our reality and our identity, how it influences our community and surroundings, but also the process of changing or renewing our mind from our previous situation and our experiences to create a new cultural value and new principles and core values, so we can think outside of what we've always known and what we've learned as children. That a lot of times not healthy for us individually, and healthy for us moving forward in our personal lives as well as our career.
Yeah, absolutely. And Justin, tell me how your personal experience sort of impacts the work that you do today, buddy. How has it impacted you?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much. So much of that goes into the work that we do. It's a combination of things. It's a combination of personal experiences. Learning from my failures, my downfalls, from times that I've done wrong in my life, times that I've been wronged in my life. Learning from those specific things and situations. Learning from the bad relationships that I've had with either foster parents in certain households and certain things that I've done wrong, and trying to give as many perspectives as I can as I interact with, other foster parents, judges, attorneys, and other stakeholders in the system, so they can learn from my mistakes and have a good understanding of best practices to approach relationships with their colleagues as well as the youth that they're serving. So it comes full circle, our personal experiences, but also combining that with strategic strategies and information so we can have something tangible to implement into our daily lives and routine.
Yeah, absolutely. And Justin, I know that you spent some time at Western Michigan in college, buddy, and your college experience really shaped the part of who you are today. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about it.
Yeah, first and foremost, just me entering college is just a blessing within itself. Only 3% of foster youth graduate from college. Roughly half of foster youth are able to graduate from high school. So being a part of that 50%, around 50%, maybe believe it's lower than that, of foster youth that graduate high school is a blessing. And being able to do that took a lot of mentors, 11 people speaking life into me, and just my willingness to see the end result and trying to be successful post high school, trying to create a new legacy for myself and my family. And then my freshman year of college, I met one of the most inspirational people I ever met in my life, which is my wife, Alexis. And, she inspired me to do great things in my life and just holding me accountable in many areas of my life. And during my time at Western Michigan, being able to study abroad 5 times and learn from different people in different communities, different universities all over the world, as well as the information that my mentors and other people provided me at Western Michigan and in the Kalamazoo area. So it really came full circle for me and to develop me to be who I am today. And I wouldn't be an author or entrepreneur without those resources from Western Michigan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always important to have people to aspire to, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, brother, tell me, I'm curious to ask you about your own personal and professional mentors, buddy. Who have you really looked up to for inspiration outside of your life?
Yeah, I mean, been so many people. It's hard to name, but just I can identify people in certain specific parts of my life. As far as when my parents are, as much as I our relationship has been rocky. I always thankful for them that I was able to be in this world. You always have to give thanks and be grateful for that. Um, and as I remember in a pivotal moment in my life when I entered the group home, setting in around 16 to 17 years old. I had amazing mentors from the church that sponsored or funded the group home, and just people who taught me how to drive, who math tutors, and people who just are amazing people who are around me, amazing Black men who led by example in my life and teaching me and speaking words of encouragement. And so many people in my life that I can't even name, but I feel like at every single moment in my life, huge transitions and huge moments. And as I continue to grow and evolve, I've had mentors, I've had pastors, I've had, even my counselors and therapists. And I always try to make sure I have a good support system around me to make sure that I'm on top of everything I'm on top of, and make sure that my cup is full before I can pour into others.
Yeah, it takes a village to be successful, doesn't it?
Of course, yeah, yeah, and I 1,000% agree with that, and always trying to build up my community, even as an adult now, to make sure I'm on my P's and Q's.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know one thing that's very important to both you and your wife, buddy, is continuing the conversation to foster healthy relationships as it relates to mental health and healing. So tell me, where do you think we've made progress, and where do you still think we have work to do?
So I think it's important to first, think about where we are now in our current moment, and the progress we've made. What if first you have to look at what are the previous attempts that we've had to improve systems, whether it's reunification, whether it's improving individuals and providing autonomy for the youth. Look at the previous things that we've done and see how we could first improve. So I believe that with the work we do, we're always trying to get to the core issue, which so many youth are entering the foster care system because of neglect. And there are roughly 400,000, maybe close to 500,000 now, foster youth in the United States. And that number is ridiculous and is unfortunate. So with the work we do, we're trying to get to the core of things. And I think one thing each and every person can do is try to be as intentional as possible about working with young men, young women, and try to be intentional as possible about making sure that they're who they need to be first for themselves. And then as they form relationships and they have children and have a family of their own, they're in a good mental health space. They're in a good physical health space, and they have the opportunities, the employment opportunities, and different things around them, so they can be supportive of their partner as well as their children, and make sure they have a healthy, strong family. Because once they are dealing with certain mental health issues, or once they are abusing certain substances, or dealing with certain things in their life to where they can't support themselves, then their family and children will suffer the consequences, and more than likely will have to enter situations like the foster care system. So we always try to focus on the root thing and try to work with individuals so they can produce healthy and stable families.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the ways you do that, buddy, I know you and your wife created the scholarship expert and the Rose Empowerment Group, which has really had an impact positively on so many young people. So I'm wondering if you can tell me all about it.
Yeah, of course. So with the scholarship expert, it's something that we created previously. Then we're kind of focusing all of our attention on redefining normal right now. But as far as a scholarship expert, we previously used to help a lot of students as their finance scholarships, help them find them, help them understand how to apply. And it's been a privilege for me to be able to graduate from college debt free. And I believe both of us earned over 250,000 dollars or in scholarships, and or sorry, $200,000 in scholarships in our time in university, and just trying to support other people and families and doing that as well, and trying to earn opportunities to graduate. So that's something that we used to previously do, and still to a degree supporting families in doing that. But now just really trying to be intentional about those daily practices and habits, and being intentional about who we are mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and who we are full circle. And that goes as well as to the Rose from Concrete podcast that we have. Rose stands for Rising Over Societal Expectations, where we take a lot of themes and conversations from the Redefining Normal book and put those into our podcast and talk to different people about rising over societal expectations and just how they've made change in their life and impacted the world and the people around them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brandon, tell me, when you think about redefining normal, what does that entail for you? I'm curious.
Yeah, I love that question. So, redefining normal. So, everybody has a normal based on your family, your community, and your society, and basically, what becomes your reality. And for people who've experienced trauma, who've maybe experienced the foster care system, who may have experienced the juvenile detention center, or even some form of abuse, many of us have become desensitized, and trauma has become normal to us. So for people who have had those experiences, or even those who come from traditional households with two parents, redefining normal is challenging individuals to be intentional about their practices and habits on a daily, weekly, monthly routine to help them create a legacy and to create a life worth living. To not only just think about themselves, to start with themselves and taking care of themselves and all of who they are, but then normalizing practices of prosperity, of well-being, of community, of support for one another and support for yourself, and prioritizing that, and then ultimately passing down healthy generational patterns, a good legacy to those who follow behind you, and really just be intentional about who we are and how we identify.
Yeah, and tell me, Justin, I'm curious to ask you about your relationship with your wife, and based on your experience, do you think you've built a stronger relationship in marriage because of what you've gone through? And what does she mean to your body? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I know for a lot of people who've experienced trauma, they come together, and unfortunately, a lot of time it's a ticking time bomb. And it could have been the same for us. So things were pretty rocky during the beginning, and I'm quick to admit that, and we talk about that in our book. But one thing we had to do is be intentional about taking care of ourselves. We made a commitment to go to therapy and go to counseling individually before we came together, before we were married. And even before marriage, we went to marriage counseling so we can both establish our core principles and values, both establish who we are foundationally and what is the purpose of our marriage. Once we had a good sense of what was our purpose individually, and as well as what's our purpose in marriage, then we have something bigger than ourselves that we can contribute to, something that we can focus on, something that's not about us individually. Of course, we want to be there for each other and support each other individually, but really focus in on things that are bigger than us, like our faith, like serving God and serving the people of God, and trying to just be intentional as possible about the things that are bigger than us, and having a purposeful, having purpose, having meaning behind each and everything that we do in each and every relationship that we form, including our marriage, which is the most important, one of the most important relationships you'll ever develop.
Black shares his thoughts on the steps that still need to be taken today to make sure that the foster youth have a chance to flourish and thrive and set the course for a
Yeah, of course. So
redefined
every single thing comes down
normal.
to well, first it starts with the fundamentals. Foster you can't thrive or grow if they don't have the basic needs. They don't have access to food, water, clothing, shelter. They don't have access to those things. The likelihood of them surviving and having what they need is going to be very, very rough. And the likelihood of them prospering would be very rough. With that, I think they need a community of people who are speaking life into them, speaking in words of encouragement, believing in them, helping them set goals. Because we are the average of the five people we're surrounded with. It's a quote from Jim Rohn. And if we're not surrounded with people who are loving, who are caring, who believe in us, who are not practicing the habits that, who are practicing the habits that we want to have within ourselves and want us to be a reflection of, if we're not doing that, then we're failing the youth, and it's intentional. It's very important that we provide them with intentional support around mental health and the basic things that they may need, just like a driver's license. It's like tutoring in high school, or the basic things, and not looking too big, but the small things. So looking at the small details and the ways that we can support people. And every single individual needs to look at themselves and say, what can I do? You know, if I can't be a foster parent or adoptive parent myself, can I mentor? Can I contribute resources, clothing? What can I contribute? What time can I contribute to the foster care system, to those who've experienced trauma? What can I do myself to support these youth? And it could be the smallest things. If you are, you know, a mathematician, you know, just doing some tutoring for them. If you good in science, just do some tutoring. You know, if you have your license, teaching someone how to drive, whatever you can do, maybe contacting the local business to provide some transportation or whatever it may be, doing the small things and being self-reflective on the small things that a lot of people ignore and take for granted is what is needed in the lives of foster youth.
Black reflects upon the sentiment he wants to leave behind when he reflects on his individual and professional
That's a good question. That's a big one. That's a big question. My entire legacy and everything. So I think that's a big conversation. A thought that I have with myself all the time. How do I want to be remembered? How do I want my legacy to be defined? And as I think about it and reflect on it, I always want to have a couple components of it. First being servant leadership, and displaying characteristics of leadership, not by what I can receive and take from people, but how I made people feel, and making them feel better about themselves and contributing to their life, so where they can serve others and putting them in position to be successful and serve others as well. And really being able to contribute to helping people be more familiar with God and their spirituality, and tapping into that resource and helping them feel empowered in that way as well is a huge goal of mine in each and every interaction that I have, and making sure that I never skip out on that, and making sure that people they understand that through grace and mercy they're saved and they're loved. So I think that those two things really would kind of define my legacy and be reflective of my company, the books I produce, and the businesses and relationships that I build, that people will be able to describe some aspect of those two components.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, buddy, tell me, if people want to get connected with you and your wife and all the great work that you do, what's the best way they can do that?
Of course, yes. So if you want to join the Redefining Normal movement, I advise you to check out our website at re-definingnormal.com. Contact us through email at info@re-definingnormal.com. For the more mature audiences, if you want to follow us on Facebook, that's Redefining Normal Movement. And for the younger audiences, you know, you like to stay active, you like to get active, you know, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at re.definingnormal. We want to make you laugh, want to keep you informed, educated, and maybe, you know, get you a little emotional as well through the content and information that we're sharing. So follow us on social media, check out our website, go grab some merch if you like, and stay connected and join the movement.
Well, fantastic. Yes, I really enjoyed our time together, and I want to applaud the good work that you and your wife do to make a difference in the life of foster youth in Michigan and across America. Great to be with you today, and I want to thank you for being here. It's most appreciated, buddy.
Of course. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor.